Okay, hello everyone. Welcome to Manitoba Important Birds Area's continuing webinar series on bird identification. Kicking off this fall with identification of warblers. My name is Amanda Shave and I am the coordinator for the Manitoba IBA program. With the COVID-19 pandemic happening, Manitoba IBA is not able to hold the same number of in-person events this year, and so the idea of this webinar series came about in the spring. First, I just want to make sure, can people hear me? You can either turn your microphones on or put something in the chat.
I can hear you fine.
Perfect, thanks. So a couple of housekeeping comments. This webinar will be recorded and posted on YouTube for future viewing. I ask that you please keep your microphones muted, but questions can be asked through the chat function or at the end of the webinar. You can access the chat by clicking the speech bubble in the top right-hand corner of the screen. I see that a couple of you have already found it. And we will answer questions at the end of the talk. Questions are also being recorded, so if you have a question and you don't want to ask it in the presentation or we don't get to it, you're welcome to email it to the same email where you registered for the webinar. So short background about myself. As I said, I'm the coordinator for the Manitoba IBA program. I have a Master of Science degree in ornithology that I completed at the University of Manitoba, where I studied the impact of climate change on spring migration and nesting of purple martins across Canada and the United States. And I got my start with the Manitoba IBA program by volunteering at bird blitzes at various IBAs, and I moved into this position last November. So without further ado, let's move into the fall warblers of Manitoba. So just a little bit about fall migration. Of course, we know on migration, we can see many birds during the migration period that do not breed in southern Manitoba. And one of our main sources of these traveling birds, and in particular warblers, who are our focus today, come from the boreal forest region across Canada and into Alaska. In fact, about 53% of the warblers in North America breed in North America's boreal forest and pass through southern Canada on migration. We'll also be touching today on some warblers that do breed in our area and that are still just around on fall migration. So there are estimates out there that about between 1 to 3 billion birds arrive in the boreal forest in spring migration, while 3 to 5 billion birds end up leaving the boreal forest. So it really is a bird nursery, not just for warblers, but for many other bird species. And because we are talking about the plumage that you will see birds in fall, I thought I'd do just a very quick touch on plumage and molt. So warblers generally undergo one complete molt where they lose all their feathers and one partial molt where they replace some of their feathers every year in their yearly cycle. So generally they molt all their feathers after nesting, and this is the plumage we see in the fall, which is generally a little bit drabber. And then they molt some of their feathers before the next breeding season, and this leads to the bright plumage we see in the spring. So often in that partial molt, or where they lose some of their feathers before regrowing them, they're doing that to gain those feathers that are important for attracting a mate, for being bright and flashy. So on to the actual identification itself. There are 4 areas that I tend to concentrate on in IDing fall warblers, and the first of which is the wings. So here we're looking particularly for wing bars and also the color. So we can see this bird beside here has got 2 white wing bars. For face, looking for the general pattern on the face. If it has a cheek patch, also looking for if there is an eye ring, and is that eye ring a full eye ring or a partial eye ring. And we're also looking at the supercilium, or the line above the eye. So you can see in our little warbler picture here, he has an eyebrow line. Also looking for the color of the throat and also the color of the undertail coverts. So there are other things you can look for fall birds, and sometimes there's patterns on the back, or the back and the breast color is important, etc. But these are just a couple of specific IDs that I keep in mind. So the first of which that can really help narrow down and cut out a lot of your warblers when you're trying to make an ID, or do they have wing bars? So you can see we've got about half and half here with wing bars and without wing bars. So by looking to see if the bird has wing bars, you can really eliminate a lot of warblers no matter which way you go in terms of your ID. So I've divided this presentation up based on, does the bird have wing bars and does the bird not have wing bars? So first we're going to go through our warblers with wing bars, and the first is a little bit tricky, the black and white warbler, because the wing bar kind of blends into the overall black and white pattern of the bird. So they do have white wing bars. Like I said, they're black and white all over. They do keep this plumage. It's the same as their, well, they don't keep it, they molt it, but it's the same pattern as the breeding plumage. Just something of interest here that's not necessarily a spring-fall thing, but you can tell the adult male from the adult female or the juvenile black and white warbler by looking for the cheek patch, which is the black triangle. You can see that very starkly on the adult male on the left versus a whiter cheek patch or a gray cheek patch like you see in the adult female or the immature bird in the center and right pictures. Also, you can see that the adult male on the left has a black throat, which is lacking in the adult female and the immature bird. Next, we have the golden wing warbler, which has yellow wing bars, has the same breeding plumage in the spring and in the fall. However, the fall is more drab. And you can see a couple key features here. We've got the wing bars, as I said, but overall sort of grayish color, some olivey, the bright yellow crown, the black mask, and the black throat patch, which is a little bit more gray in the females. Next, we've got the Yellow-rumped Warbler. And of course, its namesake, yellow rump, can be a good identifier. They also have white undertail coverts that, which are the feathers that are just peeking out from under the tail. You can see it on the right picture, right underneath the little yellow patch on the rump. They can vary from sort of a slate gray to more of a brown color. And in the fall, their plumage once again becomes more dull. They may retain the yellow on the sides of the breast in the armpit or wing pit area. They keep a streaky breast, and they can exhibit a facial pattern, a cheek patch, a small eyebrow, and you can see this more on the bird on the right, the brown bird, as opposed to the one that's more grayish, who is not really exhibiting this facial pattern. So next we've got the Chestnut-sided Warbler. We've got buffy yellow wing bars, 2 of them. So we're still in all the birds with the wing bars. We've got a gray face and a green yellow cap and a white eye ring. Males do maintain some of the chestnut on the sides of the breast, on the flanks. However, it's not nearly as extensive as it is in the breeding season. Next, we've got the palm warbler. The palm warbler does have wing bars, however, they are faint. So that's probably, this is the one bird where it's not a great indicator. They do have a brown cap and a bit of a brown cheek pattern, although it may not be very obvious, such as the bird on the left, where it's much more obvious than the bird on the right. They do have a strong eyebrow. However, the 2 characteristics that I use to identify palm warblers most often is the bright yellow undertail coverts that contrast with generally a duller colored body, and also the fact that they tend to bob or pump their tail a lot as a behavioral way of identifying palm warblers. Next, we've got the bay-breasted warbler. So this one changes quite a bit in the plumage from the spring to the fall. Once again, we are still in the warblers that have wing bars. So the bay-breasted warbler has 2 wing bars. We've got an olive yellow head, nape, and back, a buffy sort of undertail, some rusty brown on the sides, as well as some streaking on the back. So next we have one of the warblers that is kind of quintessential when people say fall warblers are hard, or that's the exhibit of fall warblers having a different plumage. So the plumage for Blackpoll Warblers is very different between seasons. In terms of their fall plumage, they have 2 white wing bars, an olive yellow head, nape, and back. And they also exhibit some streaking on the back, which on this bird, you can see a bit on the tops of the wings. They have a white undertail, and although it wasn't on my list of spots to look when identifying birds, they have orange feet, which is going to be important. So here we have a picture of a Blackpoll Warbler on the left and the bay-breasted Warbler on the right. And as you can see, these are 2 very similar looking individuals. They're similar in the color on their head, nape, and neck. They both have white undertail coverts. They're both sort of buffy, but a little bit lighter on the front, especially if the bay-breasted doesn't have some of the chestnut color on the flanks or rufous color on the flanks. However, you can see the difference in the foot color. So the bay-breasted warbler has black or gray feet, whereas the Blackpoll Warbler has an orangey yellow feet. So moving on to the pine warbler. This is one that does not breed in the boreal forest, but we find it in the southeast of Manitoba. You can see that there are quite a range of colors that the pine warbler can show. All variations have the 2 white wing bars, but they can be yellow to a drab yellow to a gray. They have a broken eye ring. So the eye ring runs over top and underneath the eye, but you can see that it's interrupted on both sides. And the pine warbler has a solid colored back. There's no streaking. So when you get an instance where you have 2 birds that look like this, where they both have white wing bars, they both have an olive yellow head, nape, and back, and gray feet, we're looking between the immature pine warbler and the bay-breasted warbler. And you can use the eye ring or lack of eye ring, as well as the streaking on the back or the lack of streaking on the back to tell the 2 apart. So the immature pine warbler will have a broken eye ring, as well as no streaking on the back, whereas the bay-breasted warbler will have streaking on the back and no eye ring. So here's a comparison. Oh, there we go. So now we've got the Blackpoll Warbler and the pine warbler, and you can see that both have, we've got the streaking on the back of the Blackpoll Warbler and no streaking on the back of the pine warbler. And this can also be important to look for because the Blackpoll Warbler has those orange-yellow feet, but the pine warbler, the bottom of the feet are also that orange-yellow color. So depending on the angle you're looking at, they both can look like they have the same colored feet. The pine warbler, the feet will be a browny gray on the top, whereas Blackpoll Warbler's feet are entirely orange or yellow. So moving on to something a little bit easier, still in the birds with the wing bars, we have the Blackburnian Warbler. Also, this bird's plumage does change quite a bit from the breeding plumage. We've got the grayish cheek patch and crown, which is evident both in this male and female bird up on screen. We've got yellow sort of wash throughout the head and onto the breast, which gives us this bright yellow eyebrow and throat, which contrasts nicely with the cheek patch and the crown. So next we have the black-throated green warbler, who keeps a similar sort of plumage but becomes more drab. We've got a green or yellow above, or sort of an olivey color through the crown, nape, and back, and brighter yellow on the head. Undertail coverts are a white or a whitish yellow, which unfortunately you can't really see very well in either of these pictures. We've got that yellow eyebrow and a distinct cheek patch. And of course, with the males, we've got that black throat, which is a little bit more patchy in the females. Next, we're going into the Cape May Warbler. So they do still have a white wing bar, however, it is less distinct than some of the other examples we've seen so far. They also have white undertail coverts, which can be seen quite well on the bird on the right. They have streaking on their breast, and they can exhibit quite a different range of colors on their body. So from left to right across the screen, we've got a more yellow individual, a more olivey individual, and then a very gray individual. So in some of the Cape May warblers, you can see a bit of the remnant cap and cheek patch that they would have in their breeding plumage, but this is more evident in some individuals than others. So this might be an ID feature that helps you with some birds, but not all of them. So next we have the Magnolia Warbler, and this is another warbler that changes a bit from its spring breeding plumage. We've got two white wing bars, as we're still in the wing bar birds. We've got a gray face and nape, sort of going to an olive color on the back. Got a bright yellow throat and breast, and depending on the individual, they do have a gray band that divides up the throat and the breast, but that may be more or less evident depending on the individual that you're looking at. They also have white undertail coverts that contrast nicely with the bright yellow breast, so that's often easy to see depending on the angle of the bird. And they also have a white banded tail with black tips, which could be helpful if you're trying to look at the bird as it's flying away from you, which is often the case with these birds. So now we're heading into the section of birds with no wing bars. So first we've got our ubiquitous yellow warbler that breeds, like we see often in southern Manitoba breeding. Once again, no wing bars. For the adults, we've got that bright yellow or yellow-brown body. The streaking that is evident in the adult males in the breeding season becomes duller or is lost in the non-breeding season. Here's some immature yellow warblers, and they are not quite the same bright yellow that we see in the adults. They can be pale yellow to even a yellow-brown. Next, we're going into Wilson's Warbler. So I've got a Wilson's Warbler in breeding plumage on the left and non-breeding plumage on the right. You can see they have very similar coloring. However, it's lost its cap or crown in the non-breeding plumage. Once again, we're in the birds with no wing bars. So we've got no wing bars on the Wilson's Warbler. They have a yellow face and a greenish yellow body and crown. And you can see a bit of a pattern on the face with the cheek patch matching sort of the bit of the darker feathers on the crown in the non-breeding plumage. Next, we've got one of Canada's best known boreal breeding birds, the Canada Warbler. Once again, no wing bars. And we've got a dark to faint necklace going on. So you can kind of see the degrees of that across these three pictures. They have a strong full white eye ring, as well as white undertail coverts that contrast to the yellow of their breast. And I find that Canada Warblers look like they have very big eyes, and the strong full white eye ring adds to that. So that's one of the features I use for Canada Warblers. Next, we're going on to American Redstarts. And you might be thinking with the color in the wing that there is a wing bar here, and I put them in the wrong spot. But they actually don't have a wing bar. The color is in the wrong spot for that. They do keep the same plumage in the breeding and non-breeding seasons. You can see the different spots where the yellow or the orange contrasts with either the brown or the black, which is very characteristic and unique to American Redstarts. The immature males are yellow and sort of brown and look very similar to the adult females. However, immature males also will have little patches of black feathers here and there that marks them apart. Next, we have another nice easy bird that stays in the same plumage for us all year. Of course, these birds that stay in the same plumage do still molt. They just molt into another plumage that looks the same as when we see them in the spring. So we're still in the birds with no wing bars. Northern Waterthrush have a buffy throat, breast, and head, and have dark stripes all down the throat and breast. And they're a dark brown on the top of the head, back, and tail. And looking sort of superficially similar to the Northern Waterthrush, we have the Ovenbird, who also has a very similar looking plumage all year round, which is nice. They're a warm olive brown on the back compared to the darker brown of the Northern Waterthrush. They also have, they have a white throat, breast, and undertail coverts compared to the buffy throat, breast, and undertail coverts of the Northern Waterthrush. They have a striped breast. They also have a complete white eye ring and black stripe on the head. And this is another bird to me where they look like they have very large eyes for the size of their body. And with that eye ring, just it adds to that as well. So now we're moving into the Mourning Warbler. It's similar to their spring plumage, their fall plumages. Once again, we're in the birds with no wing bars. They have a gray head and yellow breast and undertail coverts. So underneath of their bodies is uniformly yellow. There's a patchy black breast. They also have a narrow partial eye ring where you can see, especially on the bottom picture, we've got the eye ring on the, or the, sorry, the white on the top as well as the bottom, but not on the side. Here are a couple more pictures of Mourning Warbler. We've got an adult female or immature male on the top and an immature female on the bottom. So basically very similar pattern, except we can see that there is no black breast on these individuals. It's entirely gray or a pale yellow. Next, we've got Nashville Warbler. So also a very similar fall plumage compared to their spring plumage. However, they do lose that crown on the top of their head. Once again, we're in the birds with no wing bars. So that took out about half the warblers if you had to try to figure out what this was. The colors appear washed out in the fall, like many of the warblers that keep a similar plumage year round. They do keep their white eye ring. And superficially, once again, these guys look kind of similar to Mourning Warblers. Mourning Warblers, I find, use habitat closer to the ground, stay lower, for example, lower shrubs, whereas Nashville warblers are often up higher in the trees. And also you can see that there's a difference in eye ring, with the Nashville warbler having the full eye ring. It's quite and quite strong. Whereas if we flip back to the Mourning Warbler, you can see that it is a partial eye ring. Okay, next we have the Connecticut Warbler. Once again, we're in the warblers with no ring bars. Connecticut warblers have strong, full white eye rings. The adults, we've got the gray head, whereas the immatures are this drab yellowish olive color. I wish I could say that this sort of squat body shape also is an identifying thing, but unfortunately it's just the two pictures we have. They're kind of have their necks tucked in, but they can have the same silhouette as any other warbler. So unfortunately, that's not a helpful thing to look for. So another of our yellowy / grayish warblers with no ring bars is the orange-crowned warbler. They have a faint eye line, and they have a yellow undertail. Overall, very drab individuals. And then another of our yellowy warblers is the Tennessee Warbler. Once again, no wing bars, and olive yellow above. Here we have undertail coverts that are white or whitish yellow, and also a pale yellow eyebrow. So here's an example of the Tennessee Warbler and the orange-crowned warbler, both of our yellowy or yellowy gray birds. We can see both here, no wing bars. Both have faint eye lines. However, we've got a difference in undertail coverts here, with the Tennessee Warbler having white undertail coverts, which contrasts with the rest of their body, while the orange-crowned warbler has yellow undertail coverts that just kind of continues with the color through their breast. Next, we've got another common bird in southern Manitoba, the common yellowthroat. We've got here an adult male and a female on this slide. We've got no wing bars, once again. Of course, we've got that bright yellow throat, and the males have the black mask with the white stripe on the top. And these guys, similar to many other warblers, the color is similar all year. In this next slide, we still have the common yellowthroats, but this time some immature individuals. The immature male on the left still has that buffy throat. You can see in the female on the right, it's more of a pale yellow. The male has the patchy black eye mask. That's not quite that dark, solid eye mask we see in the adults or adult males. So just to sort of round out the presentation, if you're looking for fall warblers, great places to view these birds on fall migration include forested areas along the Assiniboine River in Brandon, Portage la Prairie, and Winnipeg. And then I'm in Winnipeg, so I'm most familiar with that. So I've listed a couple places here that may be good to see fall warblers, such as the English Gardens at Assiniboine Park, Bruce Park, Kings Park, La Barriere Park, Kildonan Park, and Bunns Creek Park. But I'd also love to hear from people outside Winnipeg where you think the best places to see fall warblers locally are. That way, as people are going out and about, because it is migration for fall warblers right now, where they might be able to go close to them and see these warblers. So yeah, that rounds up our presentation. It's a little bit shorter this time than past presentations have been. But you're welcome to unmute yourself and ask questions or ask questions in the chat. And I thank you all for joining us today.
Hi, Amanda. Thank you very much for your presentation. It was really enjoyable. Could you please show your first slide where you have the show the birds with and without wing bars, please? I'd just like to take a screenshot of that, if you wouldn't mind.
Oh yeah, of course. Just let me scroll up here. It'll also be posted on YouTube, so you'll be able to go on and, whoop, where did it go? And take a look there as well.
Hi guys, I got a quick question. Could you just give the channel for YouTube so people will know where to be able to go? I know it's probably on the IBA website, but.
Yeah, we are, I believe, oh, hold on, let me check the channel name now. I don't usually have to find that. We're just Manitoba IBA. So if you type that in along with YouTube, we should be the first channel that comes up. I'll also be sending the link once I have it posted out to everybody. It usually takes me a couple of days to get it up there, and YouTube has to do its uploading thing, so that can take a bit too.
Cool, thanks.
You're welcome.
I have another question. What was the bird on your last slide? I know I should know, but I don't.
Hold on, let me go back. Whoops. So that one, I believe, is a juvenile yellow warbler. Or immature, I suppose.
That was my guess.
Yeah. And if anybody has pictures of unknown warblers, you're always welcome to send it to the IBA at Nature Manitoba .ca website. Always happy to try to play guess the warbler and figure it out. I know pictures are easy easier because the warblers are staying still, but it's a whole nother ball game when the warbler is flitting around in the treetops or in the trees.
I can add a place that you can go in Brandon. That would be Queen Elizabeth Park is not too bad. And the golf course is maybe not too bad. It used to be better before they chopped down all the brush.
Good to know. Thank you, Jillian. Does anybody else joining us have a favorite spot to go see fall warblers? Oh, one more spot I just thought of in Winnipeg is a Fort White Alive is always a good spot to see warblers too in the more forested area. Oh yes, there, Catherine. Catherine just came up with that one. Great minds think alike. Okay, well, if there are no more questions, I'd like to thank you for spending time with me today. As I said, this webinar has been recorded and will be available on the Manitoba IBA YouTube channel in the near future. So thank you very much, everyone. Have a great rest of your day and keep your eyes open for future webinar opportunities.